Well, hello, Tricia. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
I'm just going to go right away with the questions about your NDE.
All right. Well, I was 22 and on my way to run the Austin 10K. When this accident happened, I knew that all control had been taken out of my hands. And so, in that moment, I was no longer in control of anything. I had to wait and see who would show up, how long the ambulance would take. I waited for 17 hours in the hospital, and people find that unbelievable. They don't understand, that someone could wait without painkillers for that long. But the problem was there was not enough neurosurgeons, and this is a college town, 50,000 college students. So there's a lot of accidents, and people were taxed, like doctors and surgeons were overworked. And one surgeon didn't come in to help me because I didn't have health insurance. And then I overheard this. And at that point, I became very upset and very angry. I was like, oh, if there is a God, get me through this. That was it. And eventually, the neurosurgeon who did operate on me, and when she came back to work on me, I just went into this place to surrender because there was nothing else I could do. I signed the paper and it said 17% chance of death. And I remember thinking, well, I'm young, I'm strong, I'm probably going to make it through this surgery. The next thing that I knew, I was outside of my body. And the minute I was outside of my body, looking at my physical body on the operating table with blood coming out of it and the surgeon standing around me, I was kind of like in the corner of the room, my spirit body looking down on it. I knew, and this was probably just the out of body experience at this point. I'm out of body watching the surgery, and I see these amazing angels. They might have been 9 feet or 8 feet tall, and they were sending light through the surgeon's hand into my spine, and my whole spine lit up. And the minute you're outside of body, time and space is not the same as we perceive it. And it was almost as if I could see parts of the future. I could see that the surgeons would pick out little pieces of bone fragments that the angels were assisting them. And this was all just kind of shown to me. And we pick up information differently. And so I knew that the angels were sending light into my spirit body, into my physical body. I knew that I'd run, that I'd walk, that everything would be okay. And then the monitor stopped. Then I realized, oh, wait, now the doctors are going to know I'm dead. Now, and I saw the anesthesiologist kind of jump, like I guess he was the one that had to deal with it first. And so, he jumps up, runs around, and I remember thinking, I'm out of here. I don't want to see this bloody mess. There's more exciting things out there to see. Like I'm outside of my physical body, and you just think. And so the minute I had this thought, oh, I'll go through the door and I'll go into another part of the hospital, I did. And then I saw my stepdad get a candy bar. And so many people, so I'll stop in this interview and say, yes, I verified this with my stepdad and mom and dad, and they remember him coming into the room with a candy bar. So, yes, that has been verified. I saw him, but to me, what was funny about the moment was they were very health conscious, and they always, looked down on people who ate sugar. And I was like, well, there he is eating sugar, like he's eating a candy bar. And so I found it funny. I didn't know him that well, and I also just kind of wish that my mom had a happy marriage with him. And I felt myself at that point disconnecting. The minute I left the room where my body was being operated on, the spirit form was so exciting that it was kind of like discarding a coat. If you've ever left a coat somewhere and you don't miss it until you're out in the cold, it was almost like I didn't miss my body. It was just gone. And so here I am, in this other realm. The minute I thought of the night sky, I was in space, you might call it. And first it was our stars like above Austin, and then I just quickly transitioned. Now I know, and people always say, oh, why do people keep adding to their near death experiences? Well, I just knew I was in the stars. I just knew I was in a beautiful cosmos until the images from James Webb Telescope came out. And then I recognized some of these places, and I looked it up and I was like, that's close to 7 million light years away. So what, in 2 seconds, I was above the earth, and then I was way out in space, millions of light years away. I really do believe that the space-time continuum is breaking down. That it does during near-death experiences, that you can't classify, how far you go, where you go, how much time was there, because to me it felt like that could have been a week, or it could have been a split second, or it could have been a day, who knows. But then I was in this place which I kind of looks like the Carina Nebula to me. It was just beautiful with pinks and stars far away, and I'm floating there, and then I feel this intelligence of God coming towards me. And I say God, creator, source. It was just a knowing that something, I was created, that was creator, and creator had a vast intelligence, and creator communicated through this light. So this light was just information and light waves, kind of like the angels sent to me. This was the beginning of getting information from God, and I was hearing things like, be like a little child, love is all that matters, that's all that you take with you when you leave that place. Remember to remind them to go to nature. Very simple things. And I remember thinking, love is all that matters. Isn't that a Beatles song? Can I have some mathematical equations or something? This is what I'm taking, to humanity. It doesn't seem like enough. And then I was shown parts of my life. And the parts of my life that were good were the moments I was in nature, kind of playing, meditating as a kid, playing with wild animals, actually, and little rabbits. I did this thing as a kid where I would kind of meditate, and I'd be really still and quiet, and sometimes wild animals would come close to me, and God said that that was a beautiful thing, that I was getting in touch with my essential nature. And then I saw how, as I got older, I had been hurt by bullying and people's judgments. I didn't really see that in the near death experience, but I saw how I became judgmental. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to be better when I return. I'm really going to look at people's worth in a different way. Like, the heart is what matters. And that seemed to be another message from God. Look at people's hearts, not their outward appearances, but look at who they are inside. And I saw that these people I worked with prayed for me. And here they were going home, this married couple, and actually praying for me. And I just felt in the deepest part of my soul shame, a little shame, but also excitement that I was going to grow up and do better. Because really, I was 22. A lot of young people are judgmental of older people or people around them. And I remember thinking, but I'm going to be different now. Well, then I transitioned into heaven, which I call heaven. And to me, it was a holding place, though. It looked like the earth in perfection. Like, if you can imagine an untouched field where there is no decay, no rot, no drought, no anything, just like grass that's perfect colors that our eyes can't pick up on. I believe that our form limits how we, perceive consciousness or perceive reality. And there, I could perceive reality differently. I could be one blade of grass, but I could also be all the blades of grass. I could be the entire sky, but also just this one little part, of me. And so when I transitioned there, I thought, well, I'll be like a little child, like that voice said. I'll transition into heaven as a child, because I was a very pure child, very much in love with Jesus as a child. I grew up in an evangelical church, and I had a real relationship with Jesus as a kid. And so I went into this field like a child, and my grandfather was there, and he looked great. He had died at 71, but he looked about 35 or 40, and his eyes were more light than eyes. They were just this light that I saw from God, that I saw from the angels, and he communicated with telepathy, said he loved me, said everything was going to be fine. We spent some time together in that realm, and I began to see how people always ask, what do people do in heaven? Well, they can use their consciousness to create situations that are fun for them. And when I was a kid, I used to ride in this truck that my grandfather had, and he had given to our family. And it had sat in our yard and just rusted and decayed, because my dad never did anything with it. And there in heaven, the way his mind created it, it was perfect. And people always ask about that, like, why was there a truck in heaven? Well, it was something that we loved. So we were driving through this field and I was in the back and my feet were dragging the ground and I just felt so much peace. And my grandfather kept turning around and looking at me. And then it was almost as if he got information, like I might not come back or I might stay in this realm. And he looked at me and he said, "Do you want to go on towards God?" And I knew what he meant and I was excited. I just, my soul flew away immediately towards this huge light, which kind of looked like the sun. And so, but I knew this was God. And as I was flying there, I felt people's prayers pulling me back, and I could hear every word that they said. And I remember breaking through the prayers, like, okay, whatever, like I've got to go meet God, like it doesn't matter. And I know that that sounds sad to people who are praying for someone that they love, that someone might actually just fly past this, but maybe it also gives hope that people are so excited to meet God that they're beginning to feel that love, that perfection, that it's so much better than this world. And that's what I was beginning to feel is, I feel so good. This is what I've always wanted. This is everything I've always wanted. And as I was moving towards God, all the wounds of childhood and teenage years and early adult years were just being healed. It was as if people now do meditations and cleanses and downloads. And I feel like, well, you can't beat that one. That one's the best one. Just God's pure love, just shining through every part of your soul and reminding you that you are a part of God, that you are love and that you are loved and that you are safe and that all is well. And then the closer I got to God, the less I wanted to come back here. And the minute I started having those thoughts, it was almost as if an energetic wall came down and I hit it. And then I heard this booming voice. People always imagine God as masculine, but it's more like it rings through you. That powerful is a better term for it. There was no gender. It was just like undeniable. So it's like a part of you. So as God speaks, it also vibrates through you. And you can't not hear God's voice. That's, people often say, I don't know if I'll hear God. Oh, if God speaks directly to you, you can't deny it. It will shake you to your core. And I heard God say, look down. And I looked down and suddenly, and space and time is different. I don't know if I was seeing the future, very well could have been, because the campus where I teach now is called Trinity River Campus and it overlooks a river. But I saw this river and I saw people with shadows around them and people who were just full of light that connected to God. And so either they had shadows or they had light. And someone asked me recently, what was the percentage? How many people had light? And, were there more people covered in darkness than in light? And there were quite a few people with light, but if I would say more than half were dealing with some sort of shadows. Sometimes just drinking too much or just feeling sorry for yourself or feeling lost in depression can cut you off from that joy of God. And it's not your fault, just you need healing, you need community. There's a lot of things that are needed to reconnect people to that light of God. And there's not a lot of communities that do that for people. And so I was meant to help people's self-esteems and remind people to basically just be open to healing from God, because sometimes just that openness is enough. You don't have to follow a certain religion. You don't have to, talk to a particular healer. You yourself can have a relationship with God. And I think it was shown, though, in a different way at that time that I had to be a teacher, that I was going to be able to do this through education and I was going to teach students and I would bring some of this reminder to my students. And then about 5 years ago, I got another message from God and it kind of shocked me that my mission is complete. And I remember thinking, what, am I going to die now? Or can I just go to Costa Rica and sit in a hammock? Do I have to work? Because I'm kind of tired. What's going on here, God? But ultimately, it's just been like any other near-death experiencer. Now I still teach, but I don't have this direct mission. I don't have, it was almost like I had soul contracts with several students. So I was meant, we all help awaken each other. And so I think I was just an awakening point for certain students. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but some people might call it a Kundalini awakening. But, sometimes people associate this with like a soulmate or twin flame. You're activated by someone. You just remember something of your soul, and what that activation is really just that remembrance of, oh, I do have a soul, I do have a mission, and I was meant to connect with this teacher or this mentor or this person just to remember my soul mission. We are here to awaken one another.
Now, let me ask you about the angels. You said you saw three angels. There is a lot of art around angels for a long, long, long time, probably thousands of years. People were drawing angels and taking, now they're doing digital art about angels. Do the angels that people draw or create look like the angels that you've seen?
No, because the wings are the main thing that I'd seen in paintings. I love art, and I've been to many art museums, the Hermitage, the Louvre, just some really great art museums. They were very intelligent. That was the first thing that hit me. And their eyes were not eyes, but they were just light. And it wasn't like lasers. It was just like this beautiful effervescent light that talked, that gave information and healing. They were androgynous, so some paintings show them with kind of wavy hair about shoulder length, and that seems accurate. So it was like thicker than my hair, almost like gray or colorless, or white, because they were mainly made of light. And though they weren't masculine or feminine, they seemed strong. So they were this higher intelligent human face, but made of light, bigger than humans. And if they had wings, it was more just this sense of energy, that they could move through time and space differently, that they had a different way of traveling. And they did not look alien to me. They looked human, in the sense of hair and facial features and beauty. Like kind of like you would imagine, like good bones or good facial features. I don't know how to describe it any other way than they were just like handsome and beautiful at the same time. And yet that wasn't the point. Like the point was they were intelligent, and how they looked is very hard to describe, because how do you describe something that's made of light? And yet looks sort of human, but larger than human.
So basically, the human vocabulary is not enough to describe those angels.
It's not. It's not. They're intelligent. That's the main thing I keep coming back to, is they have healing powers and they're deeply intelligent.
We yet have to invent those words to use so we can describe this kind of experiences.
Yeah, I wonder, how they do sketch artists, and they work with people who are trying to solve crimes. I'd like to sit down with a great artist and see if they could,
Yeah.
like go back and forth with me.
Who do you think those angels were?
I felt honored that they were there for me. So there was this sense of, were they archangels who showed up with healing power? Were they my guardian angels? If those are my guardian angels, and I kind of lean towards they're my guardian angels, each of us has very powerful forces that are here with us. So every single one of us. And, most people believe that we each have two angels. These angels, it was humbling to me that I had such intelligence following me around, and almost a little sad that maybe we don't use them enough, or know how to use them, or know how to harness that power to do more in the world. I was like, wow, these amazing beings have been with me this whole time, and and I haven't done anything with it.
Yeah, it's like I could have taken advantage of that, but I didn't, right?
Yes.
Like my angel, help me win a lottery, please.
Yeah, yeah. Greater abundance.
Do you think you lost your personality when you got to the other side? You lost your individuality? Or you were still Trisha? You were still you with everything that you acquired on this earth, or you became somebody else?
It's a really good question. I think the essential me stayed me, and it was like a lot was removed, and I was brought back more to the wholeness of who I was when I came into this earth. So a lot of near death experiencers call it a second birthday because it's almost like everything that you learned, like was erased up until 22, and just your soul, the essence of you came back. So I came back a lot stronger, a lot more vocal, a lot more. I would just blow things off, and I think life was easier for me before the near death experience. To be honest, I was distrustful of people and guarded, which did protect me from some sociopaths and weirdos in this world. Like honestly, I was kind of a hardened 22-year old who'd worked in restaurants and strip clubs, and I knew how to keep people away from me. But when I came back, I was open, I was full of love, and I was just this person who wanted to see the best in every human being and remind every human being of their best qualities, no matter who they were. And sometimes people can take advantage of open natures like that. It's almost like being two in a 22-year-old's body, just like, hey, that kind of joy is fun. And you kind of become like the eternal child, which is, if you look at archetypes, it's a wonderful archetype. It helps people discover their creativity, connect to their joy, find their innocence again. But to not have boundaries in this world, that's been, like one of my big lessons is I can do that well in the classroom because there's police officers and principals and like and lots of people. If there's a kid who's too much, that kid's out of the classroom. But in the rest of the world, there's not as much protection.
Yeah. Now, you said, if I'm not correct, just correct me. You said that you looked down on Earth and you saw that about 50% of people had some kind of heavy or dark shadow around them.
I know it might have been a little more than 50%. It's hard to say. I just saw it was like I saw a part of humanity, a sample section. And I was very clear that in my own life, I had been depressed. I had taken drugs. I had, just been in my bubble. And that's the way I looked at it. Like, I didn't get outside of my bubble. I didn't feel other people's energy. I didn't care about other people. It was Trisha, 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 Trisha. Like that was it before my near death experience. And I think a lot of people walk around like that. Age teaches you empathy, and, we kind of grow into um, a greater understanding a lot of times. But I think most people do think about their coffee, their day, what's going on for them, not the greater picture of, how am I going to affect the world? What's my mission? Is God helping me? Like these are really, deep questions that the average person doesn't think about. And then even religion doesn't necessarily remind people about their vibration and their openness to God a lot of times. Religion might be inspirational, or it might remind people of some beautiful things to focus on to change their frequency and their energy. But this seemed to be someone could just be excited and totally agnostic and atheist, but they could be excited about, like, I'm going to invent something that's going to clean up the water, that I'm going to, have this new invention that's going to help apartment complexes have clean water, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm fighting climate change, and like I'm fighting this, or I'm like, and they're excited about what they're doing. They're being assisted by angels, and they're being assisted by God, because they're in the joy of bringing something to the earth. And so if you're excited about creating these interviews, if you're excited about making a film, if you're excited about something, that is light. It's like kind of being in your joy, and God supports your joy. God supports, your creativity. And if you don't have joy, go be of service, because like being of service somehow connects you to God working through you to help others. And that's kind of what I saw, is I could be depressed, but the minute I stepped into the classroom, I was like, "Ooh, there's 25 people here who need something from me. I better, like, let that depression go and like connect back to the light." And I'll admit that I still struggled with depression. I still struggled with human problems, but I let it go in the classroom, because I was of service. And it was a long trajectory of learning how to fully heal myself. And I'm still learning.
To add to your answer here, maybe God is creating through us. Maybe this is his playground and he is creating through us. He likes to do that. And we are like a little rays of light coming from God, incarnated rays of light. And we create, because he wants to create. This is his playground. We are his children and he plays with us.
I think so. That's beautiful. I like that metaphor.
Okay, Trish, I'm going to ask you a question. I know the answer to it, but I'm still going to ask you. Are you afraid of that?
No. So sometimes, I know this sounds weird, and I don't think I've ever said this in an interview, but if I got a diagnosis that meant I was dying soon, I think there's this part of me that would be a little excited. Just like when someone is dying, I get a little excited thinking, are they going to, what angels are they going to see? Who's going to be there for them? There's a little part of me that I get to see God again, that is excited to die. There's another part of me that lives with chronic pain and looks at the realities of life and looks at, oh, I don't want to be older in a nursing home, and I don't want to suffer, and so I don't like aging necessarily, but I don't mind death. So I want to live a full life as long as I can, and then I want a very quick death.
In your sleep?
Yeah, ultimately, yes, or but I have been tested, and I think I did say this in one interview, but I was in a plane that was going down, and we lost both engines, and so we were falling from the sky, and we were in the crash position, our heads down, and the people on both sides of me, I was in the middle seat. This woman and this guy, they were crying, and he especially was crying. And I was holding their hands and I was talking to him, and he's like, "I can't die. I have two kids. I've got to take care of these kids." And he was just like bawling. And I said, "Look, man, if we die, this is meant to be. This is God's timing. We won't even feel it. We're going to go right to the light. You're just going to be so happy. You're still going to be connected to your kids over there in that realm. It's going to be fine. Love never dies. We're going to be met with the greatest amount of love that you've ever felt in your life. It's going to be cool." And and then the second engine caught, and we made an emergency landing. And when I got out, both of them, looked at me and they're like, "Who are you?" But I was completely calm, like there's nothing I could do.
They ran away from you as fast as they could, right? Yeah, this woman is from mental asylum. We don't want to talk to her anymore. Thank you for watching About Freedom Show. I really appreciate you. Click on one of the videos below and don't forget to subscribe.